there is no reason for you not to be making these 200 and 300% returns. Of course, I always say the past doesn't predict the future. We have stocks on the market now that we are anticipating that will do well just the same. But you don't want to be going into the stock market thinking that this is the last money I have and I'm going to be buying stocks with it. No, because stocks, ideally, it's a long-term investment. However, we've seen some short-term plays in the market. So just ensure that you are balancing your portfolio when you're investing. So having a balanced portfolio, listening to your licensed financial advisor is critical for you to achieve your financial objectives. Several IPOs should be coming up before the end of the year, early into next year. Ensure that you're lined up. You open your account, have your investment account, and you're ready and waiting to take advantage of that. And as I said, I gave you the data.
Hello, Throp family, and welcome back to another video podcast episode. If this is your first time visiting, a special welcome to you. My name is Winthrop Wellington, and I am your host here at On Deck with Throp, where we have meaningful conversations with people from all over the world, all about Jamaica. And today we have a very special guest in that I know many people in this community have been interested in investing in the Jamaica Stock Exchange and building wealth here in Jamaica. And I got an expert, a good friend of my family's, to come and have a conversation with us today. So it is my pleasure to introduce Cleopatra Powell Behari to the podcast. Welcome, Cleopatra.
Thank you so much for having me, Winthrop. It's amazing what you're doing with your program, and I am delighted to be here. As you mentioned, I'm Cleopatra Behari. My profession is I'm a financial advisor, so I'm a manager with NCB Capital Markets, and I'm from the soil. I was born right here in Westmoreland. I attended Manning's High School, and I then studied further. I have a master's degree from the University of the West Indies, and I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Technology. So I would have specialized primarily in management studies. And really my passion is seeing persons achieve their financial objectives. It's very important to me, working with my clients along the journey, that financial path. So that's very, very passionate. That's very important for me, and it's a passion of mine. I'm also a mother and of two beautiful children, and I'm a wife, so I balance both a career and being a family person. And I'm very, very passionate about my family. So that's really me in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yes.
And what again did you say is your official job title?
So I'm a manager. I recently came back to NCB Capital Markets in the position of manager. Okay. So I'm manager for the western side of the island. So I manage Fairview location, Westmoreland, Trelawney, and Hanover as well.
I see.
Yes, so the entire western side.
Got it. Yes. And you're here from the West, you're here from Westmoreland. You said you went to
Manning's.
The Manning's.
The Manning's.
The Manning's.
The Manning's, yes.
Did you always know that you wanted to get into finance and business?
Yes, from an early age, my dream was to be a bank manager. Of course, at some point in time, I said, okay, probably not. But then I decided that, yes, this is really what I want to do. This is really what I'm passionate about. And I love just working with persons, and I love finance. So what better way to just merge the two and to be a financial advisor? So that is really how I got into banking from an early age. So I've been in banking for over 15 years. So definitely I bring that to the table, the experience in the market.
And where do you think that drive came from to go down this path of business?
So not necessarily from my family. I grew up very humble beginnings. I'm from a little community called Delftland. Some persons might be familiar with it. So I'm from Delftland originally. And my family, as I mentioned, very humble. So I decided what better way to get into a space where I can be financially free or get onto that path to financial freedom than to get into banking, understand how the market works, understand how, educating persons, educating myself more on financial freedom, and then, of course, moving into that direction, into that path.
And you mentioned that one of the aspects that you love or enjoy about your job is helping your clients achieve their financial goals.
Definitely.
And how do you go about doing that in terms of the process of helping one get from point A to point Z?
Right. So the thing is, the first thing is once a client comes to me, of course, I work with them in terms of identifying what their goals are. It's very important. As I usually say to persons, if you're going to be building a house, then of course you need to have a plan. So when you're going to go on that path to financial freedom, you also need to have a plan. So I work with you. What is your plan? What are your goals? Are you looking to get to a purchase in a house within the next 5 years? Are you wanting to plan to buy a car within the next 2 years? What are those plans? And then we design a portfolio for you with that in mind. You'd also be cognizant of the risk profile of that individual. So what is your risk profile? If it is that you realize that the stock market is going down, are you going to panic? Are you going to have sleepless nights? So we design your portfolio with all of those in mind. You might decide that, okay, I'm very conservative as an investor. There are persons who are conservative. There are persons who are moderate, so you're in between. Right. And there are persons who are aggressive in terms of taking risk. But what you want to do is to decide, where do you fall individually? It's never a one size fits all, right? So we have to understand that. So I might be more aggressive than the regular person. So I'm going to probably put 80% of my portfolio in something that is aggressive, like the stock market, real estate, and so on. But if it is that you're very conservative, then you'd want to do the opposite of what I would probably do. So you have to understand individually what your risk appetite is, what your goal is, and also very important is your time horizon. Mm-hmm. What time are you working with to achieve this financial objective?
And so you mentioned achieving financial freedom.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the FIRE movement?
The FIRE movement?
Yeah, it stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early.
Okay.
And so this has been something that has been very popular I would say in the United States, at least that's where I heard it from.
Right.
And essentially the idea of the concept is that people make, I would say, in a sense, sacrifices in their 20s and 30s in order to be able to retire in their 40s.
Of course.
And so the idea is that I wouldn't necessarily say penny pinch, but they basically cut out the unnecessary and just dump like tons of money instead of going out or buying coffees into the market, right?
Yes.
And it's also like they're kind of changing the mindset of what it is like to retire, where I would say in the olden days, and when I say olden days, like in our parents' days, it's like we work up until we're 65 or 70 or whatever, we retire, and those are our golden years.
Yes.
And with the FIRE movement, it's like, no, we want to bring that time horizon, as you mentioned before, we want to bring it to the 40s or wherever you are in your life, we want to bring that time period down. This is kind of maybe a redundant or rhetorical question, but with that movement and that mindset, is that something that can be achieved within the markets of Jamaica by doing that and using that approach, this FIRE movement?
It can definitely be. So you really mentioned it. One very important part of investing is doing a budget. So you mentioned it, persons have to sacrifice. So when you do your budget, you have line of sight. You're cognizant of what your expenses are. Of course, most persons will readily know what your income is, and the drive is always to increase your income. But once you know these expenses, you can cut back on, as you said, the coffee, bring lunch to work as opposed to buying lunch every day. And if you keep buying lunch, for example, daily, then you're spending $1,000 on average in Jamaica, for example, right? But if you don't do that budget on a monthly basis, you don't even realize what that works out to be at the end of the month. But if you decide that, okay, I'm going to, on the weekend, buy some food at the supermarket or so, and then you're going to ensure that you cook that lunch and take it to work. Probably 2 times, 3 times for the week, you start out doing that, and you'd be surprised to see how much you're able to cut back. Just one example. Right. And of course, things that you can do at home to reduce your electricity bill and so on. But the idea is to always be reducing your expenses because, of course, at the end of the day, you'll be able to have more funds to invest. And there's something called the 50-30-20 rule, where in budgeting. So the idea is to ensure that you have at least 50% of your expenses that's going towards that must be going towards the fixed expenses. 30% goes towards your variable expenses, right? And we know fixed is anything that is standard. Every month you'd have to pay these. but then 20% at least should be going towards an investment account. So persons are going to be doing the reverse. They will, want to pay all the expenses, and then sometimes there's nothing left at the end of the day to invest. But you want to do what is also called pay yourself first. So that is also going to help you towards your financial independence. Ensure that you're getting a set amount, a set percentage. It could be 10% just starting out. You really want to get to 20 or so, but you start out with something where you're working towards retirement. You're working towards, and as we mentioned, we're not working towards 60 and 70. We're trying to bring that date forward. So it can be, as you mentioned, 40. It can be 30. There are persons now in the 20s and so on, as you mentioned, doing different things, of course, legal things, and are investing their money wisely and are making the sacrifices and working towards financial freedom. And it is possible. You just have to ensure that you're doing what it is that you're supposed to do, and you have to be very aggressive in the early stage. That's very important. So I find that a lot of persons right now want to be very conservative. I don't want to take any risk, but risk and rewards go together. Right. So I always say to persons, they're married, they're always holding hands, So you're going to say, okay, I don't want to take risk. That simply means to me that you don't necessarily want to get the returns or the high returns that's going to allow you to get to your financial freedom faster. Specifically now, what you'd want to do is to invest. Invest in Jamaica. There are lots of opportunities. Persons, I'm sure, watching are aware that the Jamaica Stock Exchange has been doing extremely well over the last couple of years, right? So you want to be a part of that. That is one opportunity for you to get into achieving your financial objectives. So you understand the Jamaica stock market. And of course, I will delve into that. How do you get into the Jamaica Stock Exchange? It is available to any person, whether you're here in Jamaica, if you're part of the diaspora, if you're in Canada, UK, US, anywhere you are in the world, you can invest in the Jamaica Stock Exchange and you can reap these benefits. So that's one way. Specifically, how do you get started? How do you understand what is happening in the Jamaica Stock Exchange? How do you get started? So the first thing, it's very easy. I say to persons all the time, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Okay. So one is to ensure that you find a broker. You need a licensed financial advisor to work with you, right? So the broker and licensed and experienced. And that's really what NCB Capital Markets has to offer. We have many of our advisors are with the company for many years, so we have the experience. So the idea is you need what is called a JCSD number. Okay. And that's a number that's only provided by one of the brokerage houses in Jamaica. So persons will tend to ask, can I do this by myself? Can I just go and buy stocks on the Jamaica Stock Exchange? No, you'd first need to have an account with one of the brokerage houses in Jamaica.
And you need to do that through a broker.
Oh, got it. Right. So there are several brokerage houses in Jamaica. Of course, as I said to you, identifying the right one that is suitable to you, that is going to be working with you and the most convenient. So again, at NCB Capital Markets, we allow you, if you're in the diaspora, you can open an account using your phone or any device that's available to you. So we have access to opening the account that way. So the fact is, when you open that account and you get what is called your JCSD number, that is your license, you're good to go. Once you have that account, that JCSD number, then you have to fund the account. So you'll transfer the money that you're going to be investing in that account.
And is there any sort of qualifying period or qualifying standards that you have to meet?
So in terms of documents that you'd have to provide us with, we have your ID, which is identification. It can be your passport, your driver's license, or if you have a national ID that's required as ID. You can have your TRN, your tax registration number for Jamaicans, and it's the equivalent for depending on where you are in the world. So if you're in the US, it is your social security number or your national insurance number, depending on where you are. So it's the equivalent of our TRN or the tax registration number that's required. You'll also need proof of your address, and most persons have that readily. Mm-hmm. It can be a utility bill. It could be a bank statement, something that has your name and your address on it. That's the proof of address. And then for the proof of income, if you're self-employed, we'd get a document signed by a justice of the peace stating that you're self-employed. If you are salaried, so you're working for a company, of course, you'd have your pay slip you'd need to have that at hand. And also, if you don't have a payslip, you can use a job letter, or you get paid through an account. So you can give us a statement from that account. So it's pretty simple. You'll also need the names and numbers of 2 persons we can use as references. Remember, it's not back in the day when you'd have to go to the JP and get them to write a form. No, you're giving us just the name and the number, and we will call these persons just to verify that they know you, and we can use them as a reference.
And these can be all people from abroad if you're in New York or Canada?
Yes, we can get in the case of the US, it would be notary public, but yes, we can get that information. So it's not as difficult as persons usually think. It's once you contact us, we can guide you in terms of what is needed and how to get started. It's not difficult.
And just by the process that you just laid out, it seems like you could do this in a matter of days.
Yes, yes, it can be done in a matter of minutes because as I said to persons, yes, if it is that you have, for example, online banking with NCB, using NCB as an example, you are able to go onto our online banking, and within minutes, you will just click the NCB Go IPO, and then you will be able to select Create Investment Account. Once you select Create Investment Account, it will actually give you the checklist in terms of what is required, just to have those at hand. And most times I say to person, you'll probably have that in your wallet or in your purse, your ID, your TRN, and so on. Once you have that, you just upload the information, answer the questions, and voila, you're able to open the account. And then you'll be getting a welcome email, and that welcome email will state your JCSD number and your account number, and you're ready. Then you'll be able to transfer the funds to fund the account, and then you can go onto the Jamaica Stock Exchange website. We use the JTrader Pro, but NCB, we actually have our own website. So we have the NCB Wealth option where you are able to open the account, you're able to watch your portfolio, you're able to check the balance on your portfolio, you are able to trade, buy and sell the stocks. You're able to do so many different things on that app. So it's a beautiful, beautiful app. And you're able to track the history. A lot of times persons will say, I don't remember what I paid for this particular stock. You are able to track that on our app. So it's a beautiful, beautiful site.
So this is an app that would be equivalent to, say, maybe like an E-Trade?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Very similar. So most of the options on the E-Trade you're able to do on our app as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not a situation like before where maybe a few years ago you'd have to actually call the broker and to make trades.
No.
Okay.
Right. Or send an email. Yes. So I mean, the thing is, there are still persons who will want to do that, but I try to educate persons and say, guys, you can do this. It's in the palm of your hands now. So in the middle of the night, you thought about a stock that you said, I want to buy. You probably watched the news and you said, you want to invest in this company, just for argument's sake. And you can place this order on the site, right, in the night. Then it will go into the queue for the following day. So it's, of course, trading on the Jamaica Stock Exchange occurs between 9:30 and 1 on a daily basis.
I see.
Right. And, of course, work days. But you can place an order outside of that window. So you might be busy, you have a full day tomorrow. You can place that order from this evening. Right? In the morning, you might be going to work, you're busy, you don't have that time to send an email to a trader, for them to do that for you, but you would have taken care of that from the night before.
I see.
Yes.
And are you charged on a per trade basis, the fee?
Yes, the fees are per trade. And of course, again, let me point out, if you are sending an email to the broker, most brokerage houses, for them to place the order for you, it costs way more, sometimes double in terms of the fees. But if you place the order yourself, of course, that is an incentive for you because it is going to be way less.
Okay. And can you tell us how much those fees are?
Sure. On average, the brokerage fee is between 0.5 and 0.75%, depending on the brokerage house. And usually, in-house transactions, 2%.
Oh,
so look at that
really?
difference.
Wow.
Yes, it's 2% for the brokerage fee only. There are other fees that are charged, but 2% for the broker, right? So I always encourage clients, do not send email to the brokerage house for them to trade for you. Just go online, learn the process, and we're willing to work with you. But it's just knowledge. That's a no-brainer. But I still see persons coming in and say, I can't be bothered. Of course, if the system is not working, that's a different scenario. Right. But if you have access to this, Don't be lazy, guys. Just do it. And I mean, I'm speaking to the persons in the diaspora. Of course, you wouldn't be coming in, for example, to the brokerage house to place your orders. So I'm sure you'd love the convenience of placing it online.
Wow.
Yes.
And then I know you have given me a lot of advice on different stocks to look into, and then you also send emails about like different IPOs that are happening and what's happening in the financial sector.
Right.
As an NCB Capital Markets client, would you have access to, say, your knowledge or that of another financial expert? Of
course. So the thing is, we have an experienced research team at NCB Capital Markets. So we do all the research for you. Of course, we've delved into the different companies, analyzed what's happening with the companies, and then we put that nicely together, packaged, and we will send that out to our clients in emails. And that is also uploaded on our website. So persons have ready access to this information at any given point in time. But as I mentioned, we will send it to you. As you said, you would have received it. So you'd have seen what we're recommending. It's called our stock picks or stock recommendations. So you will see what we're saying you should be buying, or what you should be selling, or what you should be holding in your portfolio. So let's say, don't do anything with these right now. Neither buy nor sell, just hold. But persons will also understand that this, I can personally give you some advice as well. Usually that is going to be based on the directives of our research team. But we have experience that, again, I can speak to that. The persons in that department, most of these persons have been with the company for many years. So again, very experienced in the market. So they know what they're doing.
And you have access to these people, obviously doing business hours. If you have questions, you pick up the phone, and then they'll advise you.
Definitely. Okay. And as I said to persons, again, I'm very accessible personally, because I find having persons work, during the course of the day, for example, some doctors, you're very busy. You're 9 to 5, 9 to 7. You're extremely busy. So I'm available for persons outside of that time period. You might be 8, that's when you have the time to speak to me. That's when you have a little downtime. You've just left work and you have some time. I make myself available to my clients because I want to see you achieve your financial objectives, right? So we work with you to achieve your goals.
And how often does that email get sent out with updates and recommendations? So
at least probably once per week.
Okay.
We try. The thing is, realistically, some things might not change in the market, especially where stocks are concerned. So you might see something coming out with an IPO. You don't have an IPO every week. You don't have an IPO every month either. But as long as there's news, something that you need to know, we're going to ensure that we're sending that information to you. So you're kept abreast of what's happening. And I find that sometimes, even if I'm not sending out an email, for example, I might just be putting stuff on my status. I know a lot of my clients actually look at my status, what's happening. So it might just be a one line, something new. You'll just see it real quick there. But you'll always be getting an email in terms of the stock recommendations. But I'm saying it might not be that something would have changed this week from last week. So we probably would have sent something this week. We might not be sending out a new stock recommendation because nothing would have changed significantly in the market.
Got it.
Right.
And in order to be on that email list, you have to be a client of NCB Capital Markets?
For sure. But the thing is, as I mentioned, you can check our website as well for information. But definitely, we want you to be a client so we can work with you. We can hold your hand and work with you to achieving your financial objective.
No, right. I think that's the best thing.
That's the best thing. So again, as I said, you're my client. You're going to be calling me. You're going to be asking me, I saw something on the stock recommendation. I'm not sure what this means. Let's go through it together and I'll work with you.
Okay.
Right.
And then on the NCB app and maybe the website, do you have access to technical analysis like charts? I know you mentioned historical data.
Exactly. So the Jamaica Stock Exchange website is awesome. I find it to be very, very user friendly. Anything that's happening new in the market, any new IPO, that's going to be listed there. So I say to persons sometimes, we try to communicate with you in terms of what's happening new in the market, but the Jamaica Stock Exchange website is going to show you on the news as soon as an IPO is available, even before sometimes the brokerage house will be able to send it out to you. Because again, not all IPOs will be done through all the brokers. Understand? So we might be waiting to do a research on the company before we send out an analysis to our customers. But at least you'll know that an IPO is out. We also have on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, as you said, historical data. There are graphs that you can see, charts that you can see, history in terms of what happened last year, what happened 3 years ago. All of that information is available to you. So if you want to analyze a company, if you're that technically inclined, you can see what's happening on the market as well for yourself. And it's very simple. It's very, very simple. So if you want to look and to see, okay, which stock is paying dividend, for example. Dividend, of course, is one of the benefits of having some of the stocks. So you will check on the stock exchange website and you will see what dividend is paid, when the dividend is going to be paid. All of that information is available. So I find that persons will ask you, when is this company paying dividends again? Of course, you can answer, we're the advisor, but the information is also on the website. Yes. Okay. So once a company is paying a dividend, it's going to be listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. It's going to tell you when and the percentage, the amount that's going to be paid. And then, of course, you will calculate based on how many units you know you have.
Got it.
Right.
And as far as funding your account, you had mentioned that you can do that from abroad. That would be done via wire transfer?
Yes. Okay. So if, for example, you have NCB online banking, you can, and the funds are already in your savings account, you can simply just transfer it from your savings account to the investment account and do the trade. Or even if you're using, or let's say you're not using the JTrader Pro. If you're using JTrader Pro, you need to fund that account, do a funds in. But if you're using our app, we allow you to just click the purchase, for example, and the funds will be pulled directly from your savings account. So you don't even have to transfer it over to the investment account. It's that easy.
But what if you have, like, say, you don't have an NCB account here, but you have like a Chase account in New York?
And you can wire the funds into the account. That's after you would have opened the investment account with us.
Right.
Yes.
So you wire from the Chase to the investment account.
Sure.
But it seems like a little bit more convenient to have an NCB savings or checking account.
Yes. But if you don't, of course, as I said, you can still send the funds over and you can place the order just the same.
Okay.
Right.
Excellent. Easy enough.
Yes, easy enough. As I said, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
So with the Jamaica Stock Exchange itself, you had mentioned this before that it's been doing very well the last few years. And I don't want to underplay that in any way because it's been doing exceptionally well the last few years. And I think it's important that we kind of bring context to what good is or what well is. And I think it's important that people really consider it to be part of their overall investment portfolio. Because yes, we got the NASDAQ, we have the New York Stock Exchange, we have the FTSE, all that sort of thing. But Jamaica is our home, right?
Correct.
And this should be high on the list of consideration.
Definitely. And I mean, we're not just focusing on giving back and, being a part of it because it's Jamaica, but the data is there. We have been number one for the last few years, of course, pre-COVID. The fact is, I have a client who came to me, she lives in New York, and she came to me 2 years ago and she was saying they were working out their pension plan at her workplace. And when she looked, she realized that they were actually investing in the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Oh, yes. Get out of here.
In New York. Yes. So of course, that brought her attention and her eyes were opened and she's like, if they're over there and they're investing in the Jamaica Stock Exchange, why shouldn't she be investing directly in the Jamaica Stock Exchange herself? So that was a no-brainer. And she was at that point in time looking to come back to Jamaica and, retire here. So it really brings into context that persons are investing all over the world. So individually, you want to be a part of that. When I spoke about stocks performing well on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, I have seen stock do over 800%, 900% returns in a year. Wow. So specifically this year, even though we're going through pre-recession, we're going through high inflation rates and so on, there are still opportunities for persons on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. I'll give you examples. Initial public offerings, IPOs. All of the IPOs that would have listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange year to date are over 50%. So 50%, 100%, 200% returns. Specifically, one-on-one would have been the most recent IPO. That stock is almost at 50% in terms of return. But going back a little, the stock before that was Dollar Financial. And I mean, it's right here in our community. It's here in Westmoreland. Dollar Financial came out at $1 per share. Dollar Financial now is over $3, $3.28. They're about $3.30 it's trading at on the market. Spurtree IPO was the first one to list earlier this year in February of 2022. And this stock, again, came out at $1. Dollar seems to be the magic number in terms of the IPO. And this stock now is $3.60. So specifically, you had invested $1 million, for example, you'd be looking at over $3 million right now. Right?
Boy, what am I
And
doing?
let me, yes. And let me just say to you that when you invest in an IPO, for example, the fees that you'll pay, it's negligible. So you're not the 0.75 or the 0.5 or the 2% that I mentioned earlier. You would not be paying those fees purchasing. Usually it's per trade. So it's buying and selling that you'll be paying the fees. Persons love IPOs because you don't pay that. It's a flat fee that you'd be paying when you are investing in an IPO.
Oh, I didn't
and
know
that fee, yes, it is so insignificant, right? It is around just about $1 US now for the persons who are overseas. So Jamaican, yes,
I can kick
it's
myself.
$172.50 that you'd be paying. It's very, very negligible, right?
Okay.
So less than 200 Jamaican dollars, that's the fee when you're purchasing. Of course, when you're selling the stock, when you're going to be selling it, you'll be paying the fee. Once you do it online again, as I said, between 0.5 and 0.75%. So there is no reason for you not to be making these 200 and 300% returns. Of course, I always say the past doesn't predict the future. So even though those stocks would have done well in the past, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But we have stocks on the market now that we are anticipating that will do well just the same. So you don't want to never invest in stocks if you're not in it for the long term. So persons tend to do the trades and so on, that's fine. But you don't want to be going into the stock market thinking that this is the last money I have and I'm going to be buying stocks with it. No, because stocks, ideally, it's a long-term investment. However, we've seen some short-term plays in the market. So just ensure that you are balancing your portfolio when you're investing. So worst case scenario, you realize the stock price has not appreciated, you have a desire to do some, to get some funds from your account, you should always have an account that is available, a conservative account. So when you're investing, the portfolio should be what we call diversified, low risk, moderate, and something high risk. Right? Gotcha. So you have to always be cognizant of that. So COVID came. That was a surprise to a lot of persons. You should realize that the monies that you're going to be taking, because the stocks, most of the stocks would have depreciated in value, you're not worried because what goes down will come back up. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
So, but if you had no other resource, no other access to any funds, then you'd be in a problem. And then you would realize that you'd have to sell and realize these losses. And that's what we never want to see for our clients.
Right,
so having a balanced portfolio, listening to your licensed financial advisor is critical for you to achieve your financial objectives.
And can you tell us a little bit about those three companies, Dollar Financial, Spurtree, and One on One, you said?
One on One.
Okay.
So One on One is an education company.
Okay.
Dollar Financial, they have Cambio, they have a suite of offerings for persons. And again, that's something that persons can use without giving them a plug. Mm-hmm. But, you want to send back to your persons in Jamaica, you have access to that. You want to go and convert some funds, you can do that here as well. So okay. that's a big company that's all over Jamaica, in different parishes. Okay. So persons can look at that company. They do, based on what we're seeing, have growth potential. Excellent. And Spurtree spices. So if you're cooking, you probably use Spurtree spices. They have a wider range of spices. Okay. So again, local companies that you'd be investing in that's on the Jamaican Stock Exchange. But I'll also point out, for persons thinking that I'm speaking about a lot of Jamaican stocks, you have the opportunity of invested on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, but in US dollars, and getting dividends paid in US dollars as well. So that's a win-win. So there are several companies on the Jamaica Stock Exchange that allow you to invest as well. Okay. In US.
And is that an advantage to be able to do Jamaican and US dollars?
Of course, both. Having a balance, that's part of having a balanced portfolio, because we know what's happening with the devaluation of the Jamaican dollar. Mm-hmm. So yes, there are stocks that would have done 200, 300%, but then also you want to have some hard currency. And that's important in your portfolio. Having some foreign exchange, that's always having a balanced portfolio as well. Okay. Yes.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
It makes sense, yes. So you'd be getting, as I said, dividends. Sometimes you want to take a trip, you're getting some passive income, because that's what it is. You have that 2,000, 10,000 US that's invested, but you would have gotten some dividend payments and over time it's accumulated in an account, you probably would not reinvest, but you're able to use that as you're spending money if you're going on a trip. And you're saying, okay, this is passive income that's coming in. But as I said, always when you're investing, be cognizant of this is my goal. I'll have to make sacrifices. I always say to persons, Rome wasn't built in a day, so you have to be patient with yourself, very important. And those are some of the things that you look at in terms of working towards your goal. One very important tip for me as well is to have persons understand that it's not just about you. So if you have children, you have to educate them. You have to teach them about money and the importance of investing from an early age. Because I find that, of course, you can relate. I'm not sure if you can relate, but persons are not taught about investing from an early age.
Yes,
it's even savings. You hear about you should save your money. And of course, there's a big difference between saving and investing. So you really want your money to be working for you. Warren Buffett said it well, have your money work while you're sleeping. So you can imagine you're sleeping and your money is just working. So you have worked hard for this money, allow the money to work for you. And that's what the stock market will do for you and other investments, of course.
In your experience, what would you say is the gap between getting people to understand that concept and actually executing on this? Because it sounds very simple, basic. Right. It sounds something like something that everybody not should be doing, but needs to be doing.
Of course, yes, that's important.
So what why aren't, in your experience, why aren't you seeing more people doing this and just kind of becoming normalized? Because sometimes I feel like when we think of investing in stocks, we're like, oh, that's only for rich people kind of thing. Yes,
and I'll get to that, as you said, the rich people. But one major thing is fear and a lack of knowledge. So persons are afraid of the unknown. I don't know about stocks. I don't understand how it works. And you're probably not willing to go and get that information, whether speak to the advisor, whether check out some things online, some credible sources online that will provide you with that information. And I always point out to persons that back in the day, you didn't have this information at your fingertip. You do know. So you can, of course, ask your advisor, okay, who are 2 or 3 persons that I could follow online who will speak, about investments and how I should work towards that. So I find that persons are very fearful. Once they hear investment, they think risk, which really ought not to be the case, because as I said, there are different types of risk. But the fact is, fear and a lack of knowledge, I find, is really what is holding a lot of persons back. They don't want to get into the unknown because they don't understand it. I mean, I have 50-year-old, 40-year-old persons coming to me and they're saying, I heard about this, but I thought it wasn't for me because I don't have enough information and I'm afraid of taking risks because somebody told me that they lost money and so on. But I'm saying, if you really do some research and talk about this person who would have probably bought this stock at this point in time, they probably would have sold too early. As I mentioned to you, not having a balanced portfolio, COVID came or something came at that point in time and they had to withdraw. But if they had this stock to this day, they would be better off, right? Because it's a cycle. What goes down will come back up. And the stock market, it's proven, always outperform fixed income investments. So persons don't understand that it's just a matter of time. It's having a balanced portfolio, not touching the funds when you don't need to, and not panicking.
Right.
Panicking. I mean, even COVID was, again, another reality for a lot of persons. They saw the portfolio going down. I remember listening to Kalila Reynolds and she was saying, I am not even looking at my portfolio right now. Last year, she wasn't looking at it because you don't want to be at that point in time. Okay, things are going down, but it's just a matter of time. And there are several stocks that would have gone down last year that are actually increasing this year. So persons just have to be patient. And I tell persons again, the stock market, it really teaches you to be patient. You have to be patient. Yes. So in terms of the being fearful again, persons, or the lack of knowledge, I would say, persons want to invest in the market, but no, you can invest as little as, 10,000, 5,000, depending on what, and that's Jamaican dollars I'm referring to. So depending on what is happening. So most of the IPOs, the initial public offerings that come out, the minimum to start is really, really low, right? So the average person can do it. I say to persons, even your child can actually, probably would have gotten some monies for Christmas, for birthday. Help them to understand that you need to start from now, and this is something that you can do. So those minimum balances, it's not $1 million, it's not $10 million for you to start. Each person can have an equity account or a stock account. We use the terms interchangeably. So an IPO is coming up. Several IPOs should be coming up before the end of the year, early into next year. Ensure that you're lined up. You open your account, have your investment account, and you're ready and waiting to take advantage of that. And as I said, I gave you the data. Again, the past doesn't predict the future, but if anything happens like that, you don't want to be beating yourself, boy, I should have, right? So ensure that you're taking advantage. There are several companies on the Jamaica Stock Exchange now as well. Of course, not the IPOs because they're listed now, that you can still invest in. And of course, once you speak with us as your advisors, we can guide you in terms of which stocks should be in your portfolio, right?
I could keep going down this path and this subject matter because I'm very passionate about it, especially on the education of young people,
of course,
and the importance of financial literacy.
Yes, and starting early.
Yes. I honestly did not get into it, and I don't blame my parents for it either.
No, not at all.
They came from Jamaica. My dad came from Jamaica. My mom came from Fiji, moved to the United States.
Right.
They don't understand and know how the system works.
Exactly.
So they were at a severe disadvantage.
Yes.
And they didn't come from families. They came from very, very humble beginnings.
Just like myself.
Extremely humble beginnings. So they didn't have
myself.
access to this. None of them went to college. And it wasn't until my junior year in college that I decided to be a finance major because I just took to it. And that's when I started learning about this world. And I'm like, oh my God.
Exactly.
Like, how did I not know this?
Right.
And then I also feel like, I grew up in Long Island and public school. I was like, how come nobody taught me this in high school?
It's not being taught in school.
And so
it's not.
I feel like it may be probably the same thing here, right?
Yes,
and I'm like,
is.
man, how is this not part of basic education?
Of course.
Like, it's almost like there's like a conspiracy in my mind to keep us back.
Yes.
Because it's just like, it shouldn't take me till I am like 19 years old to be kind of getting into this world.
That's
and
true.
More of my education, like that was kind of basic education that I got in formalized classroom,
right.
But then it was me taking the initiative to self-educate and to learn myself. Yes. But some people don't have that, and it should be, in my opinion, it should be part of our basic societal education that we are financially literate and we understand the opportunities that we have at our fingertips. Yes. I mean, every person out there should know this and know that, all right, I can put in 5,000, put in 10,000, and like you said, have my money work for me while I sleep and for the rest of my life.
Exactly, doing it basic.
Yeah.
You're correct, because I find that persons are not learning about, financial literacy. It's not being taught in most schools, and it's not just Jamaica. Even in the States, it's a big thing now where they're trying to incorporate it in schools, trying to get persons to understand. But there are still, as I mentioned before, information that's available. You just have to ensure that you're checking that it's credible. But even without it being taught in schools, our responsibility is also to get that information for ourselves. Right. So you would have done some research, you would have done some educating yourself, separate and apart from what you would have learned in schools. So that's very, very important for me as well. Yeah. But every opportunity I get to speak with persons, to educate, especially the young persons, because remember, this is the point in time when you're just leaving university, for example, you're starting your first job, and your thing is, let me go buy a car, let me go do something, and that car is going to be a liability. So you want to ensure that stay with your parents, for example, for a little while longer. Mm-hmm. That's something that can reduce your expenses a whole lot. Yeah. So a lot of times persons think, let me just get out of the house, that's it. And then you're taking on this additional expense that you don't necessarily need to take on at this point in time, because remember, you're working towards a particular goal. And the bigger picture is to acquire my own house and to pay a mortgage within the next 5-10 years. But how are you going to be doing that if you're paying rent for an extended period? This is money going into someone else's pocket.
That's right.
So you have to be smart about it. So any opportunity I get to speak to persons, I'll go to, Mannings, I go to universities, and I'll speak to persons about what you should do the moment you start your first job. Saving and investing your money for retirement. That should be from the first salary. Not waiting until, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm going to be retiring in 20 years. No. You have to do it from your first salary. So that's very important.
Yeah. Like I said, I could keep going down this path, but I'm going to pump the brakes on it and allow us to get into some questions
of course.
From the Throp community. And I let everybody know that we were going to be having this sit down. We're going to be sitting with this financial expert. And so they came back with a bunch of questions that I would like to ask you.
Sure.
So this one came from, so basically the same question, but two different people. So Shayna Love Coaching and Rakia Johnson. Is there any advice that you could give for beginner traders? And we'll leave it at that.
Sure. Beginner traders, you need to have the information, have your clear goal, as I mentioned before. Outline your goal, know what it is that you're working towards, right? So is it a 2-year time horizon that you have? Is it a 3-year time horizon? What your goal is and what your time horizon is. And then, of course, you have the account. I'm assuming you already have your account. Ensure that you're choosing a company that will work with you, a company that has the convenience, because not all the time you'll be able to go into the bank to do your investment.
This is a brokerage company.
A brokerage company. Right. Very important, because you need a brokerage account in order to trade. So, and the persons you're working with must be licensed and must be experienced in the market. Very important, because the experience is going to guide you along your financial path, and not to limiting yourself to the advice of the advisor, but doing some additional research, as you mentioned, because information is there readily available that you can look at for yourself as well. And always looking at the information that the financial company will be sending to you. So we would have done the research. We'll be guiding you along the way. That is really what is important for you. And just personally making sure that you are making those sacrifices on a monthly basis to be consistent with your investing. So if it is 10,000 that you've earmarked that you're going to be investing monthly, try to do that. You might have a 1 or 2 months that you'll fall off. Let's say Christmas is coming up. I will be buying some extra gifts or whatever it is that you're going to be doing, but try to be consistent as much as possible throughout the year, because that is how you're going to work towards your goal. I've seen persons put $10,000 in an account and 2-3 years later haven't made a deposit since. They're expecting it to be doubled or tripled, or you understand what I mean? So you have to be realistic with your expectations and work towards your goal. Right. So you can do a deposit, a lump sum, but try as much as possible to be consistent. Try to do something on a monthly basis. So you might start with 100,000, but 5,000 is what you have monthly, 10,000 is what you have monthly. Just do that, because when you check that 2-3 years from now, you'd be surprised to see how much that has grown.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that,
and then,
but the
compound effect.
Yeah.
Yes, our minds are thinking, right? So that's the power of the compound effect. Persons are going to think, okay, and this is how the money continues to work as well. It's interest on top of interest on top of interest. So you would have had realistically 100,000 as your principal, and then you deposited 10,000 and you're getting some interest on that 110,000. The next interest payment is going to be more. It's not going to be the same.
Right.
And it's interest added back to principal, added back to interest, and you constantly get more. So it's compounded. And the power of the compound effect, just you can Google that.
Right.
There are so many information out there about the compound effect. There is a book entitled The Compound Effect, and I recommend that to anyone. Check out that book. It's on audio. Persons like to listen. And I also say to persons, especially young persons, you're driving, use your car as a university.
Such a proponent for that.
Yes.
Don't listen to music.
Yes, you're listening. Exactly. You're listening to
your
music.
Podcast, listen to audiobook.
Exactly. I say to persons, yes, the podcast, the audiobook. I say to my children, I'm like, these, even watching the TV sometimes, I'm like, listen, there's so many educational things out there. Financial literacy, there's a balance, So you're listening to music, but these persons are set. They're good. You want to be educating yourself. I want to know more about investment. I want to know what's happening in the market today. Check out what's happening. Listen to these books. Read these books. If you're a reader, the compound effect can educate you on a lot of things.
Several
books. I can give you a whole list of books that you can read, you can listen to, that can guide you along your financial path.
Yeah, great advice.
Yes.
Great advice. These are 2 questions. So this one's from JB. How to invest in the Jamaican stock exchange, if you're in the diaspora / non-citizen, you kind of went into that.
Sure.
And if you paid in US, is it best to get a bank account in Jamaica or just keep my current US bank account?
Sure. Right. So having the Jamaican account is fine. You can get a regular savings account where you're sending your dividends to that specific account, and then you can actually do additional purchases. So once it would have accumulated, the fact is now, let me just say, in the past, you needed 100 units minimum of any given stock to trade. Now it's 1 unit. So it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You can trade any. So if you have that dividend coming in and you want to use that to purchase additional shares, do that. Because of course, again, the compound, and you're going to be seeing the benefit of having these shares accumulated. You'll have more shares, and then the next dividend payment, of course, you'll be getting more dividends. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right.
This is another one from Shayna Love Coaching. What banks would you suggest to open your first account, and which ones have the best rate of return? Okay,
so what you'd need to do is to ensure that you're checking what's happening in the market, what's convenient for you. So you want a financial institution or a bank that is going to offer you convenience. So I'm assuming especially if you're not in Jamaica, you want someone who is going to be able to work with you. You want the online platform. So which company offers that? And you also want to know that the financial advisor is going to be working with you along that path. So where do you find that? Those are some of the questions that you'd have to really ask yourself. The experience of these advisors as well, that will come into play. Because, of course, as we hear, experience teacheth wisdom. So, I'm not saying someone who is in the market for the first time, 1 year, 2 years in it, would not be able to give you that advice. But I'm sure persons are more comfortable using a doctor, for example, going to a doctor who has been doing this for 10 years or more. Absolutely. Than someone who is doing this, a year, just left med school and so on. So likewise, you want to do those research. You want to check with the persons who are going to be, as I said, available to you as well. So there are some advisors who are out there who might not be accessible. You want your advisor to be very accessible. So what I can say to answer that question, of course, these are check boxes, and you go through and check. And at NCB Capital Markets, we would basically check all those boxes. So that would be my answer to you.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Great advice. So now I got a number of questions from Chris PW, and he's very active in the Thrive community, especially on the live streams. Okay. And he seems to be in the finance sector, or at least very interested in the finance sector. Right. And so his first question is, and these could be rapid fire because there's quite a number of them. So is there derivative trading in Jamaica?
No, not in Jamaica.
Okay. Are there any data providers on firms listed on the exchange?
Right. So yes, we have several companies that will go through and do the research.
Okay.
The brokerage houses will provide research as well and send that to you. There are other companies that will provide research. So Learn, Grow, Invest, for example, online. You can check them out. They actually provide information as well.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, excellent. Is there a minimum trade size?
That's the $1 1 unit.
The 1 unit.
1 unit that I mentioned, right? So as little as 1 unit.
Okay, not a dollar amount, but
right, unit. 1 unit. Okay. So 1 unit could be 1 unit of NCB, for example, that's at approximately $90 will be different from a dollar that's at a $3.60, they're about $3.30, right?
Gotcha.
So, right.
Okay, and then he also asked, there is no capital gain tax, which we know that, right? But is there a transfer tax?
Right. Yes. If you're going to be transferring from one person to the next, then there are some fees that are involved to transfer from your account to my account. There will be the trade fees. But the dividends, that's taxed at 15%. He didn't ask that, but I'm just saying.
Sure, that's
tax on dividends in Jamaica is 15%. And let me just pause to say that's still a plus. Because in Jamaica, regular withholding tax on your savings account, on your fixed deposit, is 25%. Oftentimes, persons don't know that. Yes, persons don't know that. So it's 25% of your interest that is withholding tax that goes to the government. However, tax on dividends is only 15%. So, of course, that's more money in your pocket.
And are you able to do automatic reinvestment of dividends?
Not automatic. So it would
Okay.
be, because we have the platform, then yes, you can actually place the orders. So once the dividends, it's paid out to you, paid out to your account,
Okay.
you would have given the what is called a mandate. So you'd have signed a mandate to send the funds to your investment account. That's fine. So as soon as the dividend hit back that account, you can place that order. You can also have something in writing that you'd have sent to the brokerage house. But remember, as I said, that's going to cost you a little more. So it's
Right.
always easy. Once you're seeing the dividend payments, it's in your account. We can advise you as well. Sometimes we'll send out little emails to say, these dividends are going to be paid at this point in time. But again, the Jamaica Stock Exchange has that information readily available. So you know that you have Grace Kennedy, you have NCB, you have Seprod. You're looking at when the dividends are going to be paid. You'll see the money is coming in your account. You just go back online and place the order to invest in whichever company you want to invest in.
Okay, so I was just trying to see if there was a way to smartly avoid the 15% tax.
Oh,
on the
no,
dividends.
right.
Okay.
Because they tax it and then they send you the net.
I see. Oh, I see.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if you're supposed to get $10, they will tax the $10 first and then send you the difference to your account.
Okay.
So there's no right.
All right.
Right.
Fair
There's
enough.
no way.
All right. So we got one last question from the Throp community. And this one is from AP. And they say, longtime follower, first time commenter. Question: are there special JSE investment programs for Jamaican diaspora? Until now, as a Jamaican-born American citizen, I've not considered ever investing in my home country stock market. So this is new territory for me. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful, wonderful question, AP. So as we mentioned before, the stock market, the Jamaican stock market is available to every individual. So whether you're here in Jamaica, you're in the diaspora, you're in anywhere in the world, you can invest in the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And I'm happy that you are now considering investing in Jamaica. So as you mentioned, you are not from Jamaica, you're originally from Jamaica, but you haven't considered investing back in your home country. And we're not just saying invest in Jamaica because it's your home country. We're saying invest in Jamaica Stock Exchange because it has been proven and tested to do well, right? It has been performing well over the last few years. And I mentioned before how many stocks that have shown returns year to date of over 100, 200, 300%. So I'm sure you'd want to be a part of that. Even in an economy where things are not doing so well, there are still opportunities, because in life, there are always opportunities. So we wanted to focus now on how to invest on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And of course, I mentioned it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Just investing, opening your equity account or your stock account through a licensed financial advisor, through a brokerage company, of course, but making sure that you have a licensed financial advisor, and then ensuring that you fund that account and then just start trading. And you'd be, of course, the more you trade, the more you'll get comfortable with the platform. And of course, we're there to guide you as well. But then the more you'll want to invest in the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Once you start to see that first 100%, of course, we're not guaranteeing anything. But once you see that first profit, you're going to be saying, yes, let me send some more money. And I'm investing in Jamaica. So there's more than one reason for you to invest. And of course, you're going to feel like, yes, I'm giving back as well to my home country. So that's going to be the second reward for you. So personally, you'll be seeing the profits in your pocket, but also just that sense of I'm giving back to my country as well, helping to build Jamaica.
And I think that's such an important point.
So important.
And I think a great point to end on is that, look, the exchange, the Jamaican Stock Exchange, is helping you to achieve your personal financial goals. And probably giving you opportunities that you may not be privy to in your quote unquote now home country that you're living in, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, you're also helping to build Jamaica and helping to grow Jamaica. And to me, that's a win-win situation.
It's a win-win situation. And think about it as well. You're not going to be just doing it for yourself, but your future and your future generations to come. So you're going to make sure that you're building this wealth, but who is going to preserve it for you? Your children and your children's children. And that's what generational wealth is all about as well.
Yes, and I know that is a top priority for many
priority.
Individuals and many families.
Of course.
And with that, Cleo, I learned so much today.
Thank you.
Stuff that I didn't even know we were going to hit on and we were going to touch on.
Course.
So I can't thank you enough. and I know I have access to you. I do want my community and my audience to have access to you. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they want more information?
Of course. So you can reach me on cell. I'm usually very much available at any point in time. My telephone number is 876-552-0841. 876-552-0841. My email address is Beharie, CE@jncb.com. That's BEHARIECE@jncb.com. So you can send me an email if you have follow-up questions. I'm readily available to answer them.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So once again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Wonderful program.
Thank you. Yes. And I'm sure we will do this again because I know a lot of people are going to have follow-up questions. And I think it's also important to let everybody know, if they don't know already, that you are going to be a speaker at ThropX 2022.
Yes, I'm excited for that. Right.
Excellent.
Looking forward to seeing you guys there.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. All right.